On the edge of the wind-carved frontier plains, where dust storms roared like angry spirits, across the horizon and the nights echoed with the howls of wolves, hungry for flesh or destiny, lived a young rancher named Cole Harland, a man whose courage rarely announced itself but revealed its strength through his quiet choices, his calloused hands, and the unshakable principles he carried, as silently as the morning sun carried its heat. And one fateful evening, when the sun bled crimson across the distant buttes, Cole noticed a lone figure approaching, stumbling, towering, a man carved like an iron mountain, yet barely able to walk, an enormous warrior of the stone-faced giant tribe, a people whispered about across saloons and trading posts, feared for their colossal strength and unwavering loyalty, known to bend steel and crush boulders with bare hands. But here was one tall as two men, limping, gripping a spear cracked in half, his breaths heavy like rolling thunder. And Cole, guided by instinct rather than sense, walked forward instead of hiding. He asked no questions, took no step back, even when the warrior's shadow swallowed him whole. And in that quiet, charged moment, the warrior uttered in a deep, broken whisper that he had been ambushed by raiders near the canyon ridge, his horse killed, his tribe miles away, and without a mount he would die before dawn. Cole, without hesitation, without fear of what this giant could do if he chose violence, stepped aside, untied his own best horse, his prized silver stallion named Ashwind, the horse he trained since birth, the horse that carried him through storms and seasons, and he handed the reins to the wounded giant warrior, who stared at him with disbelief burning in his ember-colored eyes. For no outsider had ever shown kindness to his people. The giant asked why he would give away something so valuable, and Cole simply answered, "Because a man in need is a man worth helping," a sentence so simple yet so powerful that it struck the warrior like a prayer. With a nod, the giant mounted Ashwind, and before riding into the bleeding horizon, he declared that the giant tribe never forgets a debt of honor. Then he vanished into the darkness, just as coyotes cried from the hills, leaving Cole to walk home alone through the cold, thinking he might never see the stallion or the giant again. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Life returned to routine, but a quiet emptiness followed Cole across the ranch, missing the familiar thunder of Ashwind's hooves. And though he tried to bury the memory, a part of him wondered if his kindness had simply cost him the finest friend he ever had. Yet destiny had its own way of circling back, and years later, long after the night, he gave his horse to a limping stranger. The sun would rise on a morning that would change Cole's life forever. A morning when the sound of heavy drumming hooves and the trembling of the ground would bring the giant tribe back into Cole's world, not to take from him, but to repay a debt in a way no man on the frontier had ever witnessed. A repayment that would turn Cole's humble barn into something the plains had never seen before. A vault of gold, sealed by honor. It happened at sunrise, just as Cole stepped outside with a mug of bitter coffee, and the sky began to glow with the first hints of amber when he felt the earth quake beneath his boots. Not a tremor of nature, but the rhythmic pounding of synchronized hooves. Dozens, maybe hundreds, and before he could blink, the eastern ridge erupted with the silhouettes of enormous riders, warriors of the giant tribe, each towering figure astride, mammoth war horses draped in obsidian, feathers and bronze armor that shimmered like molten sunrise. At their front rode the very warrior Cole had saved years ago, no longer limping but strong, regal, wearing a mantle of antlered fur and carrying Ashwind, Cole's stallion, alive, healthy, powerful, and adorned with tribal markings of honor. And as they approached, the warrior dismounted, bowed his colossal frame, and declared in a voice that echoed like a drum across the valley that the tribe had not forgotten his mercy. Then 50 warriors dismounted, each carrying heavy chests bound in ironwood and sealed with engraved stone runes. And as Cole watched in stunned silence, they carried these chests into his barn, his old, weather-beaten barn that once held nothing but hay and memories, and they stacked them with reverence, until the structure seemed ready to burst from the weight of what they placed inside. When the last chest was finally opened, Cole saw a blinding flood of gold coins, carved idols, crystal-lined ingots, relics older than the frontier itself. Treasures collected across centuries of tribal journeys, each piece worth fortunes beyond a rancher's wildest dreams. The warrior then placed his massive hand on Cole's shoulder and told him that this treasure was not payment, nor charity, but an unbreakable pact. A man who gives from the heart is a man trusted with the heart of a people, he said, explaining that the giant tribe needed a sacred guardian. Outside their mountains, a neutral keeper whose honesty had already been proven by the simple act of giving away his most valued companion on a night when no one else would have helped. Cole stood breathless as the warrior continued, declaring that from this sunrise onward, Cole's barn would be known among their people as the Vault of the Plains, a sanctuary of tribal wealth protected by both their oath and Cole's integrity. And as the sun rose higher, painting the chests of gold in fiery light, Cole felt something transform inside him, not because of the fortune now lying in his barn, but because he realized that kindness, even one small act done without expectation, could ripple across years and come back with the force of destiny. The giant tribe rode away at mid-morning, leaving Cole with Ashwind and a barn that now glowed like a treasure chamber of legends. And as Cole watched the last warrior disappear into the far hills, he turned toward the horizon with a smile, knowing that his life had become a living story worth sharing. And to every listener, every watcher, every dreamer following tales like this, he'd say what I'll tell you now. If stories of courage, kindness, and destiny ignite your spirit, then hit that subscribe button and join this journey, because more epic legends are waiting just beyond the next sunrise. Weeks passed after the sunrise that turned Cole Harlan's life into legend. And though the barn now slept under the weight of gold and sacred relics, Cole himself lived with a humble heart, never once prying open a chest unless the tribe requested it, never boasting about the fortune buried behind those wooden doors. And one misty evening, when the plains were wrapped in silver fog and the wind carried the scent of distant rain, Cole heard a heavy knock at his cabin door. It was the giant warrior once more, standing silent as the mountains. But this time, his expression carried neither urgency nor pain, only deep respect. He entered without a word, placed a stone tablet etched with ancient symbols on the table, and told Cole that this was the tribe's eternal oath, a document never before given to an outsider, marking him not just as guardian of the vault, but as a brother of the giants, a title that meant he could call upon them in times of danger, war, sickness, or need, and they would cross mountains for him as easily as crossing a river. Cole felt his chest tighten, overwhelmed by the honor, and the warrior explained that trust as pure as the night. He gave away Ashwind, was rarer than gold itself, rarer even than the sacred ore stored in the barn. Then, in a gesture almost impossible to believe, the warrior knelt, one knee, his colossal frame lowering, like a bending oak, swearing that the tribe would protect Cole's land, his home, and his bloodline long after he turned to dust. When he rose, he placed a carved bone pendant in Cole's hand, saying, "Wear this when your voice must reach us, and we will ride." And before Cole could speak, the warrior stepped out into the fog, vanishing like a myth, walking back into the realm of stories. As Cole closed the door, he realized that true wealth was not stored in chests of gold, but in the loyalty of those who saw his kindness and chose to stand with him for life.